Welcome to Put a Word on It, a podcast presented by Men of Valor. In each episode, we're going to talk with a different man, but each one with a unique journey from brokenness to freedom. I'm your host, Rudy Kalis. I spent over 40 years as a TV sportscaster, then retired and joined the Men of Valor program as a volunteer. So join the conversation. Reconciling men to God, their families, and society. Thanks for joining us. Another edition of Put a Word on It. I want you to meet a guy with a big old smile on his face. He walks in the room and lights up the room, and yet his story is just phenomenal. All the things that happen in his life and all the places that he's been. You talk about being incarcerated maybe in one place. This guy's made the grand tour of the state of Tennessee, and yet here he is with us now. But you got to know his backstory. Here he is, Brian Belser. You walked in with this big old smile. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up, really moved around a lot. I was born in Memphis, moved to Atlanta, then Rome, Georgia, Hendersonville, and then
Why all the moving?
Knoxville. My dad was in the swimming pool business, and as they were opening up, he was in the wholesale business, and as they were opening up a new branch, he would move or job changes. He stayed in the same industry, but it seemed like every time he got a promotion, it was a new city.
See, but that's hard, especially if you're like, let's say, get high school age and you get some friends and now you got to move again and all that sort of stuff. What kind of kid were you?
I was raised in a good Christian home, middle class. The moving around, when I look back in hindsight, people who do drugs are the most accepting of people who do drugs. So like when I moved from Hendersonville to Knoxville, I was about 15, and that was a very pivotal point to where I can look back now and see things start to slide downhill.
So you talk about drugs, getting involved with that. Do you think it was something is it genetic? Is it the people you run with? How does that happen?
I never really did any of the hard drugs. I had experimented with them. For me, it was the money. By the time I was, I have what was called the plug. So all of my friends needed to be able to get pot, and I knew where to go get it. So I didn't have as much money as they did, but they needed me to go get what they wanted. And that just blossomed through the years to when I was 17, I was selling multiple pounds of pot a week.
You obviously got caught. How'd that happen?
When I was 19, I had been dating a lady for a couple years on and off, and we had been separated, and she called me and asked me if I would come pick her up. She had actually been living with one of my friends. Well, when I went over there to pick her up, he had beaten her up. And so we went and hung out that weekend, and she got me to take her back to get her stuff on Monday. He had called and said that all her stuff was in the yard and she needed to come and get it. So I took her over there to get it, and he had hidden his car. And when we pulled up and she got out to get her clothes, he had jerked her out and started beating her up in the front yard. Well, of course, I was a drug dealing thug, so I had a gun. I got out to stop him from beating her up. He and I wrestled over the gun. The gun went off. He got shot in the chest and later died that evening. So at 19, I had a first-degree murder charge.
Whoa.
20, I was convicted of second-degree murder. Received a 25-year sentence. I had gotten some federal charges while I was out on bond. So at 20 years old, I went to Brushy Mountain with a 30-year sentence.
But you also visited other prisons, if you can call it that, right? How many did you go to?
I've been to every prison in the state of Tennessee except for CCA, and they wouldn't accept me.
Why? I know they just move guys around arbitrarily at times. Was that the case with you, or were you in trouble?
Not so much. I pretty well earned my transfers, I guess you could say. For the first dozen years I was in prison, I chased women and sold drugs. And I did that wherever I was at. And
wait a minute, the first dozen years you were in prison, you're not chasing women then, you're in prison.
Well, there's still women in prison. And somehow, I don't know, they said I had the gift of gab or something, but some of them seemed to like me. So
that was where that smile came in.
I know that, probably. But so it was either for selling drugs or for involvement with an officer, I would end up getting transferred to the next place.
What? But you're sitting here. How did you get out, and when did you get out?
October 21st, 2007, I gave my life to the Lord.
Oh, and by yourself, or did somebody influence it?
I had been brought up in a Christian home, and, Proverbs tells us, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he'll not depart from it. Mm-hmm. So I have to give my dad a lot of credit for, even though I didn't act on it, he instilled the word of God in me growing up. Mm. So when I had hit rock bottom, I knew exactly where I had to turn. And as a kid, I'd walk down the aisle, said the prayer, got dunked, and then went on to live like the devil for about the next 25 years. So in October 2007, I finally surrendered my life to Jesus Christ. And as time went by, I immediately, and part of it was a selfish method or reason, I quit getting high because they had taken my visits. And a big part of my testimony is my wife. She actually had come to Turney Center and found me. She was my very first girlfriend in Hendersonville when we were 11, 12 years old. And she came and found me in prison. And probably the pivotal question that she asked me was, do you want out of prison? And I had been in for a dozen years or more at the time, probably 13 or 14. And I told her, I said, that's a crazy question. She said, well, I know you say that, but she said, I watch the things that you do. And if you continue to do those things after you get out, you're not going to be able to stay out.
You're not married now at this time.
I was not married.
She just comes to visit and puts his word on you.
Every weekend for 4 years, she came to visit me. I got out in March of 2011. We got married 3 weeks later. Thank the Lord. April the 2nd is our 10-year anniversary. So she was very instrumental in just causing me to look at really what I was doing. And then I got in trouble right behind that. The Lord orchestrated another trip to Max for me for some of my shenanigans. And just there on the concrete floor, looking at those 4 walls, I started comparing my life at that point to my dad's and what he had and what he had done. And it was no comparison. I wasn't living. I was simply existing. So I wish I could tell you that my story ended when I got out right there, but unfortunately it doesn't. So after being out for about 5 years, I had a swimming pool company, and I got hurt. Well, I had sold pills and dope, and I knew everything there was to know about pills, I thought. And this is what I refer to now as my spiritual arrogance. I thought because the doctor said, well, this is your only option. You're going to have to take these pills if you want to work, that I could take them like I was supposed to. And I did for about 9 months. And then over the next 9 months, I had about $1,000 a day pain pill habit. Went through all of our money and savings that we had saved up, and ultimately ended up, I had this big jacked up 4-wheel drive truck that I was real proud of. And it was the winter time when I got off the pills, and they were going to repossess it. And I didn't want to let it go. So I had other vehicles. So I took the truck and hid it at a friend of mine's house. Well, Tennessee has a law called hindering a secured creditor. So I got charged with a Class E felony, got my parole violated, and had to go back to Northwest in 2016, 2017 to flatten out the remainder of my sentence. When I got out, we always want to fix what we messed up, and we're always in a hurry to do that. So I did my due diligence on all the prison ministries in the whole state because I thought that would definitely be the only thing I was qualified to do. So I kept coming across Men of Valor, Men of Valor. So I came down to a class, put a word on it, as a matter of fact, spent an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes with the guys, met with Tevin, our discipleship director, afterwards, told him, hey, I'm going to work here. You just don't know it yet. So until you can hire me, just treat me like I work here. So we laughingly call that my internship now. So I worked here for a year before I was brought on full-time staff.
You said that you came in and go and put a word on a class. And if I threw that at you and said, give me, what kind of a word would you say?
My word for this season right here, I think, Rudy, would have to be sacrifice. Romans 12:1 tells us, therefore, brethren, by the mercy of God, present yourself as a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service and worship. So as I studied the Bible and began to learn what Jesus did for me and what no part I had in it, it seemed like a very small thing to give him back the remainder of whatever I've got left, working with men just like me, and maybe being able to give them the hope and encouragement that there is a better way through our Lord Jesus Christ.
You know what I noticed about you? You're the kind of guy, when he sets his mind to something, if it's selling drugs or if it's taking the pills or it's going straight or it's giving his life to Jesus Christ, you're going to stand on it, I believe, at this point, aren't you?
I'm fairly committed to what I make up my mind to generally.
Well, now you put your business in the street. You keep walking in the room with that smile. You'll make people enjoy your company, my friend. Good to talk to you.
Good talking to you too, Rudy. Thank you very much for all that you do for us.
So let's put a word on it. Sacrifice. See, and just his personality told me that. The sacrifice is, I'm going to deny myself and I'm going to do it your way, Lord, no matter what. You can do whatever you want with this. And he did put in there Romans 12:1 in what he talked about. So I love that. And again, he just affects these guys because he wants them to feel the same love that God has given to him. Sacrifice. Something we don't think about often. Most of the time we're selfish. Hey, I want it for me. No, I sacrifice it for you. And that's only the love of Christ that can do that. Thanks for joining us on another edition of Put a Word on It.